Hey everyone, it's Eric. I'm really excited to show you this Euro nymphing style blob fly that I'm going to be tying today. This was originally a stillwater pattern that was developed to be fished in lakes and things like that for trout in Europe. The one that I'm tying today has a tungsten bead at the front and is awesome for using in moving waters like rivers and streams. This is a pattern that I was given from one of my good friends and fishing buddies, Steve Nelson. I've used this pattern to catch tons and tons and tons of good stocked rainbows. It also works for browns, holdovers. I've even caught steelhead with this pattern. Everything that swims that eats an egg will eat this pattern at some point or another, especially stockfish. Now this fly was originally fished a lot in Europe, and in some of the stillwater competitions over there, versions of this fly were actually illegal in competitions because they were so effective at catching fish. This jelly fritz material looks very translucent when it's in the water, and so the whole egg appears translucent, just like a natural egg would look like in the river system. The hook that I prefer for this is a Hanik H450BL size 12 Jig Superb. This has a wide hook gap compared to some of the narrower hook gaps that I see on other Euro nymphing hooks. With the material that we're using and the way we wrap it, that wide hook gap is important so we get good hook sets. The thread that I'm going to be tying with today is UTC Ultra 140 denier red. I can get away with this pretty thick thread because for this fly, bulk is not something that I'm concerned about because the material itself has lots of bulk already. We're going to start this thread behind the bead here, and we're going to wrap back to about the hook point. There's not really any reason to wrap back farther than that on this fly because we want the material to stay from that point forward. For this fly, I have a black nickel bead, but I also tie these in matte black, and I haven't seen any difference as far as the catch rate goes, whether I use a black nickel or just a matte black bead. Now, because I'm going to be wrapping this jelly fritz around here, I'm going to go ahead and seat that bead just so that it doesn't spin with my wraps of my material. That way I can make sure when I get my material all the way to the back of the bead, it's not going to be turned and have it be on there in the wrong orientation. Now there are several versions of this fly. Some are all one color, some are two colors. The color combination that I prefer are three colors just like this. Some people call this tequila or tequila sunrise. The three that I've found work the best are the three that Steve Nelson actually originally told me about, which were the atomic yellow, the magma, and the safety orange. Those are all the jelly 10, which means 10 millimeter fritz, as opposed to something like this micro jelly that's a smaller diameter. Now I'll change the order of these that I tie them on. Whichever one you tie on first is going to be at the back of the fly. Sometimes I put the yellow at the back, sometimes I put the orange at the back. I usually keep the red in the middle. You don't have to. I just feel like it looks sort of more like the embryo in the middle of the egg if I do it that way. But I've caught plenty of fish where the red's been at the front and then orange or yellow, or any combination of these three seems to work really well. All right, so now we're ready to start wrapping the fritz on. I'm going to strip these fibers off so that I expose that thread core. I'm going to spin my bobbin clockwise a couple times just so that it jumps back a little bit as I catch that. I want to wrap down pretty hard on this because as I wrap it forward, if it's not really seated on there, it's going to pull that core out. Advance my thread about halfway up the hook shank. Now here's where I have to wet the fibers. I just use a little bit of saliva, stroke those fibers back. They're not all going to cooperate, but I at least want most of them to go backwards. And I just start doing touching wraps, moving forwards, trying to keep those fibers going as much rearward as I can. That's wrap number 3. I'm going to do 4 with this one. And there we go. Now, I just bring my thread back so that it's basically right next to that core. Capture it. 2 strong wraps. A wrap in front and 1 more behind. And now I trim it off just like that. The next color that I'm going to use is going to be my magma red. So I've got to prepare the thing the same way that I did with the yellow. I'm going to strip a little bit of the fibers off so that that core is out. Now I want to put my core with this one about where the fibers stop for my last one. So I kind of have them touching. I'm going to capture my core. On that one I didn't have to wrap it back to be able to actually get the core in there. I am going to trim it off just like I did before. I'm going to wet these fibers. And I want to do these red wraps slightly overlapping and touching the yellow wraps. don't want it all the way on top of there, but I do want it to be close and touching. All right. I'm going to tie off my red just the way I did. 2 wraps behind, 1 wrap in front, and another wrap behind, and cut that core down close. All right, now I'm ready for my orange. You can see I'm getting a little bit close to the bead, but that really doesn't matter because I'm going to cover all that up with my orange. Strip my fiber just like I did before. Get that core right in that gap. Capture it. Make sure it's good and tight. I don't want to pull this out, especially not near the end of the fly. Trim it. Wet the fibers. Stroke them back. And I'm just going to go slightly overlapping, but not entirely on top of the red with the orange. Now, when I get to this point, I'm ready to tie my fly off. I've kind of filled in this gap between the orange and the bead, so there's not a big space there anymore. At this point, I'm going to capture that orange with a couple of really strong wraps. Couple in front, couple behind. Once I'm sure it's not going to go anywhere, I'm going to trim it close. Now, before I whip finish this, I'm going to try to stroke any of those fibers that are kind of going the wrong way back. That way it's a nice clean looking front of the fly. I want to put a pretty good whip finish on here, 4 or 5 wraps. I'm also building a little bit of a red collar. I don't want it to be too big, but that red collar can kind of give it a little bit of extra attraction. Clip my thread off close, and there you have it. Now, it's going to look very different when it's in the water. I'm going to show you what this looks like in just a second when it's in the water. But these fibers are really, really translucent, and the whole fly is going to puff up like this when it gets in the water and look a lot more egg-shaped. Here's what this fly looks like when it comes right off the vise. And a couple weeks ago, I talked to you all about making a do-it-yourself test tank for the flies, and I want to show you what it looks like when it goes in there. This is why I love to have the ability to test these flies. Look at how translucent it looks once it's in the water, how it kind of puffs out and fills out its shape. Fish cannot seem to leave this thing alone, especially stocked trout. One thing I try really hard not to do is tell people how they should be fly fishing when they're fishing for their own enjoyment. I have no problem fishing an egg. If you choose not to fish an egg, that's your choice, and I respect that for whatever reason that you have. However, I can promise you this. If you choose to fish one of these blob-style egg Euroflies, you will absolutely catch a ton of fish on it, especially stocked trout. It's late fall or early winter in Virginia right now, and this is the time of year when fish really start keen on eggs. They've been eating insects and terrestrials all spring and into the late summer, but now they're starting to see a lot of eggs showing up in the system due to the brown trout and the brook trout starting to spawn. You can see I tie these eggs in 2 different sizes to cover a variety of water depths. Also, thanks for watching this brook to river fly fishing tutorial on how to tie a Euro-nymphing blob egg. I hope it works for you, I hope it catches you a lot of fish, and now that you have a great fly, go out and catch some fish yourself and stop watching me. Thanks, bye.